One early Sunday morning, Oliver Bennett, a 45-year-old tech tycoon, awoke as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the luxurious silk curtains of his spacious bedroom. Like every weekend, he prepared for his morning routine, a jog through the quiet, tree-lined streets of Riverwood Estates, the prestigious neighborhood where he lived. At 45, Oliver embodied success as the CEO of a top tech company, amassing a fortune in the millions. Yet, as he laced up his top-tier running shoes, a hollow feeling persisted, one that wealth alone couldn't cure. Despite his grand mansion, boasting over 20 rooms and a lavish Olympic-sized pool, the silence felt immense, reminding him how empty his life had become. He stepped outside, hoping the steady beat of his footsteps would distract him from the loneliness gnawing at him. In the early morning calm, the streets were empty, save for a few gardeners working on the meticulously kept grounds of nearby mansions. Oliver let his feet carry him wherever they wanted, his thoughts drifting back to the choices that led him here. Despite all he'd achieved, an inexplicable void loomed. As he jogged, absorbed in his thoughts, a small voice broke through the silence, startling him. "I know you. Your photo is in my dad's wallet." Oliver froze, his heart racing, not just from the run, but from surprise. He looked around, searching for the voice's source, until he spotted a little girl, around 7 years old, standing nearby. She had brown hair and pigtails, big, curious eyes, and wore simple clothing that hinted her family lived a modest life. Caught off guard but curious, Oliver knelt down to her level, offering a warm smile. "And what's your name, sweetheart?" "My name's Emma," she replied, smiling back at him. "My dad has a photo of you in his wallet. He showed it to me." A shiver ran down Oliver's spine. Why would this little girl's father carry a picture of him? His mind raced, wondering who her father might be. Trying to keep his curiosity in check, he gently asked, "And where is your dad, Emma? Is he close by?" "Yeah, he's at home. I can take you there if you want," Emma replied confidently, reaching out and taking his hand without hesitation. Oliver hesitated, wondering if he should go along. It was Sunday morning. Perhaps her father was resting. Besides, following a stranger's child felt unwise. But despite his reservations, curiosity got the best of him, and he gave a nod, allowing Emma to lead the way. Oliver allowed Emma to lead the way, his curiosity now stronger than his hesitation. As they walked, he noticed how the upscale houses with manicured lawns gradually transitioned to modest homes, then small apartments. Emma moved with confidence, waving to familiar neighbors along the way. Finally, she stopped in front of a well-kept but weathered door, knocking firmly. Oliver held his breath, uncertain of what lay beyond. When the door opened, he found himself face to face with a man who looked thin and tired, his face shadowed by a rough beard. Oliver's heart stopped as he recognized him instantly. Same eyes, same features, same weary stance. The years had changed them both, yet here was his younger brother Daniel. "Is it really you?" Oliver's voice came out, a mix of shock, nostalgia, and guilt. The man's eyes filled with tears as he nodded, stepping forward cautiously. "Yes, it's me," Daniel replied, his voice breaking. Emma looked between the two men, sensing the charged silence. "Daddy, you know him, right? He's the man in the photo," she asked innocently. "Yes, Emma," Daniel replied, attempting to keep his emotions in check. He's my brother." Emma's eyes widened in surprise, but Daniel gently directed her to go play while he spoke with Oliver alone. She nodded, disappearing inside, leaving the two men standing in heavy silence. Almost 10 years had passed since they'd last seen each other, with time having carved a chasm between them. "Come in," Daniel finally said, opening the door wider. Oliver stepped into the modest home, an unexpected rush of memories and emotions overcoming him. The room was small but warm, with worn but carefully maintained furniture. On the walls, he saw family photos, including one of Daniel holding a baby Emma. A pang of regret hit Oliver as he realized all the important moments he'd missed in his brother's life. "Have a seat," Daniel offered, gesturing to an old but comfortable sofa. "Would you like something to drink? I have coffee." "Coffee would be great, thanks," Oliver replied, settling into the sofa, feeling a strange mix of discomfort and nostalgia. While Daniel went to the kitchen, Oliver took in his surroundings, noticing how much his brother had changed over the years. Daniel, once full of youthful energy, now bore a quiet, tired resilience that seemed to reflect a life of struggles he had faced alone. Moments later, Daniel returned with 2 cups of steaming coffee and sat across from him, both men unsure of what to say, yet aware that this unexpected reunion would set them on a path toward healing and reconciliation. Across from Oliver, Daniel looked down at his coffee, both men silent and uncertain where to begin. Finally, Oliver broke the quiet, asking, "So you have a daughter?" Daniel nodded, a small but genuine smile breaking his tired expression. "Yes, Emma, she's 7 now. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. She looks a lot like you," Oliver noted gently. "She's got your eyes." "And her mother's spirit," Daniel added, his smile fading as he looked away. Oliver hesitated, sensing he was on delicate ground. What happened to her mother?" "She passed 3 years ago," Daniel said quietly. "Car accident." Oliver felt a painful jolt of guilt and sympathy. His brother had endured so much and he hadn't been there. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I didn't know. How could you have?" Daniel's voice held a faint edge, though his expression softened. "It's been years since we've spoken." A heavy silence settled between them again, weighed down by the long years of absence and the regretful choices that had created this distance. Trying to bridge the gap, Oliver asked, How have you been managing?" Daniel let out a dry chuckle, glancing around the modest room. "We get by. Emma and I, we make it work." Oliver looked around, taking in the details of the simple but warm home, a place that had clearly been built on love, not money. It was such a stark contrast to his own sprawling mansion, full of everything money could buy but so empty of the warmth he saw here. "And you?" Daniel asked, eyeing him with faint curiosity. "You're quite the success story from what I hear." Oliver shifted, uncomfortable under his brother's gaze. "The company's done well, yes." Daniel nodded, and to Oliver's surprise, his words sounded genuine. "I'm happy for you, Oliver." A lump formed in Oliver's throat as he searched for words, some way to express his regret, to apologize, or at least explain the years of silence between them. But before he could speak, Emma came running back into the room, clutching a drawing she'd made. "Dad, look, I made this," she exclaimed, holding up a colorful picture of 3 stick figures, a man, a girl, and a taller man. Daniel pulled her close, smiling as he looked at the drawing. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Who's in the picture?" "It's us," Emma beamed. "You, me, and Uncle Oliver." The brothers exchanged a look, both touched and slightly surprised by how naturally Emma had accepted her uncle. Daniel gave her a gentle smile. "Emma, honey, Uncle Oliver probably has to go soon. He's got a very busy life." Oliver felt a sharp pang, as if cold water had suddenly been poured over him. It was true. His life was packed with calls, meetings, and decisions that seemed so important just hours ago. But now, none of it felt as pressing as this moment with his family. "Actually," Oliver said, surprising even himself, "I was wondering if you'd both like to join me for breakfast. I know a place nearby that makes great pancakes." Emma's eyes lit up, and she bounced with excitement. "Yes, please. Dad, can we go?" she asked, looking up at Daniel hopefully. Daniel hesitated, but when he saw the hopeful look in his daughter's eyes and the sincerity in his brother's, he nodded slowly. "All right, let's go have breakfast." "Please, Dad, can we go?" Emma pleaded, her eyes wide with excitement. Daniel looked at his brother, an uncertain mix of surprise and caution in his expression. "I don't know, Oliver," he said. "We don't want to intrude on your plans." "It's no trouble at all," Oliver insisted, smiling warmly. "I'd really like the chance to get to know my niece better, and to catch up with you." There was a brief, tense pause as Daniel considered the offer. Finally, he nodded. "All right, just give us a few minutes to get ready." As Daniel and Emma went to change, Oliver lingered in the small living room, looking over the photos on the wall. There were snapshots of his brother's life, graduation, his wedding, Emma's birth, all moments he had missed. A determination welled up within him. He couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, he could become a part of the future. When Daniel and Emma returned, dressed and ready, Oliver greeted them with a genuine smile. As they walked out of the house with Emma happily chatting between them, Oliver felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. He realized that this breakfast could be the beginning of something new, a first step toward healing old wounds and rediscovering the bond he and Daniel once shared. The restaurant Oliver chose was a cozy family-owned place with wooden tables and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Emma looked around with wide-eyed wonder, while Daniel appeared slightly uneasy, clearly unused to dining out like this. They found a seat by the window, and soon enough, plates of steaming pancakes arrived. The three of them sat in a brief, awkward silence, broken only by Emma's enthusiastic chatter about her food. Finally, Oliver decided to break the ice. "So, Emma," he began, smiling, "what do you like to do?" "I love drawing," she replied, her eyes lighting up, "and playing soccer. Dad taught me." Oliver turned to Daniel, surprised. "You still play soccer?" Daniel shrugged with a faint smile. "Sometimes. Emma and I play together on weekends," Oliver chuckled. "I remember when we used to play together in the backyard." He smiled nostalgically. "You were always better than me." "I still am," Daniel joked, a twinkle in his eye, and for a moment the tension between them softened. Emma looked curiously between the two of them. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about Uncle Oliver before?" The innocent question fell heavily on the table, causing Daniel to tense visibly. Oliver lowered his gaze, his smile fading. Daniel took a deep breath before answering. "Well, honey, it's a bit complicated. Sometimes adults make mistakes and drift apart. But we're here now." Oliver interjected, looking at his brother with a hopeful expression. Oliver looked at his brother with a mixture of guilt and hope. "If your dad agrees, maybe we could try getting to know each other better?" Daniel studied Oliver's face for a long moment before nodding slowly. "I suppose we could give it a shot." The rest of their breakfast passed in a much lighter mood. Emma animatedly shared stories about her friends in school, her energy and joy making both men smile. Oliver listened, captivated by his niece's zest for life. When they finished, he insisted on paying the bill, despite Daniel's polite objections. Stepping outside the restaurant, they paused, a bit uncertain about what to do next. "How about a walk in the park?" Oliver suggested. "There's one just a few blocks away." Emma clapped her hands in excitement, looking up at her dad hopefully. With a gentle smile, Daniel agreed, and soon the three were wandering down the park's winding paths. Emma ran ahead, exploring with wide-eyed curiosity, while Oliver and Daniel walked side by side, their silence filled with unspoken words. Finally, Oliver gathered the courage to speak. "Daniel, I know it's been years, and things didn't end well between us. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you, especially after what happened to your wife." Daniel kept his gaze on the path for a moment before he replied. "It wasn't just your fault, Oliver. I made mistakes too. My gambling problem. I messed up a lot of things. Even so, I should have been there," Oliver said, his voice soft. "You're my brother." They stopped by a bench, watching Emma laugh as she played on the swings with other children. "How did you overcome it?" Oliver asked quietly. "The addiction, I mean." Daniel sighed deeply, his expression weary. "It wasn't easy. I hit rock bottom more than once. But when Julia found out she was pregnant, I knew I had to turn my life around. For her, for the baby. I joined a support group, worked hard to get clean, and when Emma was born, there was no going back." Oliver nodded, admiration mixing with regret. "You did it all on your own. I should have been there to help." "I wasn't completely alone," Daniel replied. "Julia's parents were there for us, especially after the accident. Without them, I don't know how I would have managed or what would have happened to Emma." "I'm glad you had them," Oliver said, his voice sincere. "Daniel, I know it's a lot to ask, but do you think we could try to rebuild our relationship? I want to be there for you and Emma, if you'll let me." Daniel was silent, his gaze on his daughter as she soared high on the swing, laughing joyfully. "It won't be easy, Oliver," he said at last. "A lot has happened and we've both changed." "I know," Oliver replied, his voice steady, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes." "Why now?" Daniel asked, turning to his brother with a guarded look. "What's changed, Oliver?" Oliver paused, reflecting on his answer. "I'm not entirely sure," he admitted honestly. "Maybe it was seeing Emma and realizing everything I've missed, or maybe I finally realized that all the success and money in the world don't mean anything if you're alone." Daniel nodded slowly, his expression softening as he seemed to understand. "I can't promise anything," he said after a moment, his tone cautious but open. "But we can try. For Emma, if nothing else." A lump rose in Oliver's throat and he nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Daniel. I won't let you down this time." Just then, Emma came running towards them, her cheeks flushed from playing, her excitement bright in her eyes. "Dad, Uncle Oliver, did you see how high I was swinging? Daniel pulled her into a hug, smiling. We saw, sweetheart. You were flying. Emma turned to Oliver, eyes wide with hope. Will you come visit us again, Uncle Oliver? Oliver looked over at Daniel, searching for his brother's approval. When Daniel nodded slightly, Oliver turned back to Emma and replied warmly, I'd love to, Emma. If your dad agrees, I'd really like to see you both again soon. Yes, Emma cheered, bouncing with excitement. Can we go to your house next time, Uncle? Do you have a pool? I've always wanted to swim in one, Oliver chuckled softly. Yes, I have a pool, and I'd love for you to come and use it anytime you'd like. As they walked back to Daniel's house, Oliver felt a profound shift within himself. The emptiness he had carried for so long was starting to fill with warmth, the kind only family could bring. When they reached the door, he bent down to hug Emma. Then, after a brief hesitation, gave Daniel a hug as well. The embrace was short and a little awkward, but it carried promises they both felt deeply. I'll call you this week, Oliver said as he stepped back. Maybe we can plan that pool visit. Daniel nodded. We'd like that. As Oliver walked away, glancing back to wave at Emma, who waved enthusiastically in return, he felt as though he was leaving behind a part of himself, the lonely, distant man he had been that morning. The path to reconciliation wouldn't be easy. It would be long, and there would be challenges. But for the first time in years, Oliver felt genuine hope. Back at his mansion, he gazed around at the lavish but empty rooms with new eyes. What he once saw as symbols of success now felt like spaces waiting to be filled with laughter and family memories. He went to his study and retrieved an old photo album from a dusty drawer. Flipping through the photos of his childhood with Daniel, he felt transported to a simpler time when they were inseparable. Summers spent playing in their parents' garden, silly fights that always ended in laughter. For the first time, Oliver felt certain he could bring that joy back into his life. As Oliver flipped through the old photos, he recalled the laughter and promises he and Daniel had once shared to always be there for each other. When had they drifted apart? When had success and ambition replaced family as his priority? With a newfound resolve, Oliver closed the album. He couldn't rewrite the past, but he could shape a better future, a future that included Daniel and Emma. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone, and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Mom, it's me, Oliver. I'm fine. Listen, I have something to tell you. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and reflection. His call with his mother had turned into a heartfelt conversation about the past, and Oliver felt a weight lifting as he shared his intentions for the future. Determined to reconnect with his family, he began preparing his home for Daniel and Emma's upcoming visit. On Friday afternoon, Oliver waited nervously at the entrance to his mansion. He'd hired a cleaning crew to make the place sparkle and stocked the kitchen with Emma's favorite snacks. When the taxi finally pulled up, his heart raced. Emma was the first to hop out, her eyes widening as she took in the grand mansion. Wow, she gasped, her voice filled with awe. It's like a castle. Daniel stepped out next, looking a bit uneasy in his jeans and casual shirt. Oliver noticed the effort his brother had made to look presentable, freshly shaven, neatly dressed. Welcome, Oliver greeted, attempting a casual tone despite his nerves. I'm really glad you both could come. Thanks for inviting us, Daniel replied politely, though there was a touch of discomfort in his voice. Emma, however, was too excited to notice the tension. Uncle Oliver, where's the pool? Can we go swimming now? She asked eagerly. Oliver laughed, grateful for her enthusiasm. Of course, Emma, but how about a tour of the house first? As they moved through the grand rooms, Oliver couldn't help but notice how Daniel looked around, a mixture of amazement and a quiet sadness in his eyes. Emma, on the other hand, was fascinated, her attention captured by every room, especially the home theater and the enormous kitchen. I've never seen a house this big, Daniel murmured quietly when they reached Oliver's study. Sometimes it feels too big, Oliver admitted, his voice softening, especially when you're alone. A brief silence passed between them, tinged with the weight of years apart, until Emma's voice broke the tension. The pool, Uncle Oliver. Can we go now? Oliver chuckled, grateful for the distraction. Absolutely. Why don't you two get changed, and I'll show you where the changing rooms are. As Daniel and Emma went to get ready, Oliver took a moment to cancel a work meeting he had scheduled for later. For the first time in years, work could wait. When Oliver returned to the pool area, he was met with a sight that warmed his heart in ways he hadn't expected. Emma was laughing and splashing in the water, her joy evident, while Daniel watched from the edge with a genuine smile, looking more at ease than Oliver had seen him in years. "Come on, Uncle Oliver. The water's perfect," Emma called out, waving him over. Without a second thought, Oliver shed his shirt and jumped into the pool, joining his niece in her playful games. Soon, even Daniel was coaxed into the water, and for a little while it was as if the years of separation and misunderstandings had never happened. They swam and played until the sun began to set, casting golden and pink hues across the sky. By the time they climbed out, exhausted but happy, Oliver handed them soft, fluffy towels. "Anyone hungry?" he asked. "I was thinking we could have a barbecue in the yard." "Yes, please," Emma cheered. "Can I help?" "Of course," Oliver said, smiling. "I'll need all the help I can get. I'm no grill master." As they prepared the food together, Oliver found himself marveling at how natural it all felt. Emma chattered happily about school and her friends, while Daniel added the occasional comment, and Oliver listened, captivated. Sitting around the patio table under the stars, with the smell of grilled food in the air, he felt something he hadn't in years, a sense of belonging, of family. "This is nice," Daniel said quietly, watching Emma devour her burger. "Thank you, Oliver." "There's nothing to thank me for," Oliver replied, shaking his head. "I've missed this, missed family." A shadow of sadness flickered across Daniel's face. "Me too," he admitted. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, broken only by Emma's enthusiastic comments about her food. Finally, Oliver took a deep breath. "Daniel, I know it's early and there's a lot to rebuild, but I'd like to be in your lives again. Really, more than just occasional visits. I want to be there for both of you." Daniel looked at him intently, as if trying to gauge the sincerity in his brother's eyes. "Are you sure? Your life is very different from ours, Oliver. I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," Oliver replied firmly. "For the first time in a long time, I feel complete." Emma, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "So does this mean we'll come more often, Dad? Can I use the pool again?" Daniel glanced at his daughter, then back at Oliver, a small smile forming on his face. "I suppose so, if your uncle agrees." "More than agree," Oliver replied, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Actually, I was thinking, why not stay for the whole weekend? There's plenty of room, and we can make more plans together." Emma's face lit up, and she jumped up in excitement at the idea. After a brief moment of hesitation, Daniel nodded, agreeing. "All right, we'll stay." That night, as Oliver prepared for bed, he could hear laughter and conversation drifting from the room where Daniel and Emma were staying. The sound filled the empty halls of his mansion, bringing a warmth to spaces that had felt cold for far too long. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The mansion was no longer just a symbol of success, but a place beginning to fill with family, laughter, and love. The mansion was no longer just a symbol of Oliver's achievements. It was becoming a home filled with the warmth and love of family. As he lay down that night, he made a silent promise. He would do everything possible to keep this, to be the brother and uncle that Daniel and Emma deserved. Though the journey to full reconciliation would be long, he felt ready to take each step. Listening to the faint laughter of his family echoing through the halls, Oliver smiled, drifting to sleep with dreams of a future rich with possibilities. The weekend passed in a blur of joy and activity. Oliver, Daniel, and Emma went to the local zoo, watched movies in Oliver's private theater, and even had a small soccer match in the mansion's sprawling backyard. To Oliver's surprise, he found that he enjoyed these simple, happy moments far more than any extravagant event or business meeting he had ever attended. On Sunday afternoon, as he helped them pack, Oliver felt a pang of sadness at the thought of how quiet and empty his home would feel after they left. "It's been a wonderful weekend," he said, trying to keep his tone light. "I hope we can do it again soon." Daniel nodded, a small smile on his face. "It's been surprisingly nice, thank you, Oliver." Emma, tucking her drawings into her backpack, looked up with bright eyes. "Uncle Oliver, can we come back next weekend?" Oliver chuckled softly. "I'd love that, Emma, but I think that's up to your dad." Both turned to Daniel, who seemed to consider it thoughtfully before replying, "We can't come every weekend, but maybe once a month?" Oliver's face lit up with joy. "That would be perfect, and maybe I could visit you too. I'd love to see where you live and be a part of your daily life." Daniel looked a little surprised at the offer, but eventually nodded. "Sure, that would be nice." As they said their goodbyes at the door, Oliver knelt to hug Emma tightly. "Thank you for coming, little one. You've filled this house with joy." Emma hugged him back, her voice warm. "Thank you, Uncle Oliver. I had so much fun." Then Oliver turned to his brother. After a moment's hesitation, the two embraced, this time with less awkwardness and more warmth. "Take care, Daniel," Oliver said, "and please call me if you ever need anything at all." Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting the emotion he felt. "I will. Thank you, brother." As he watched the taxi pull away, Oliver felt both sadness and hope. Yes, the house would feel emptier, but it was also now brimming with new possibilities. In the weeks that followed, Oliver found himself re-evaluating his priorities. He began delegating more responsibilities at work, making sure he was free on weekends, and even started leaving the office at a reasonable hour during the week. His employees noticed the shift, and so did he. Work no longer felt all-consuming. One Wednesday afternoon, Oliver found himself driving to Daniel's neighborhood. He had called ahead to check it was a good time to visit, and now as he parked in front of Daniel's modest home, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Emma was the first to see him, running out to greet him with open arms. "Uncle Oliver, you came." Laughing, Oliver lifted her up in a big hug. "Of course I did. I promised, didn't I?" "Didn't I?" Oliver grinned as Daniel appeared in the doorway, wearing a tired but genuine smile. "Hello, Oliver. Welcome." Oliver stepped inside, taking in Daniel's home with fresh eyes. Though the living room was small, it was filled with warmth. Photos of Emma, family moments frozen in time, and Emma's colorful drawings covering the walls. The kitchen, though modest, carried the inviting aroma of something delicious simmering on the stove. "I hope you like stew," Daniel said, looking a bit embarrassed. "It's nothing fancy." "It smells amazing," Oliver interrupted, smiling genuinely. "Better than any fancy restaurant, I promise." During dinner, Oliver listened as Emma animatedly talked about her day at school, while Daniel shared snippets about his work. Oliver was struck by the warmth and love in the small house, a feeling his own mansion had never given him. After dinner, while Emma worked on her homework, Oliver and Daniel sat outside in the cozy backyard with cups of coffee. After a moment of gathering courage, Oliver spoke. "I've been thinking, Daniel. I'd like to help you financially, if that's okay. Maybe for Emma's education, or for you to get a bigger place if you ever want." Daniel's face tensed slightly. "Oliver, that's not necessary. We're managing just fine." "I know," Oliver said quickly, "and I don't mean to offend. It's just that I have more money than I could ever spend, and I'd like to use it in a way that means something." Daniel looked at his coffee, taking a moment to consider. "I appreciate the offer, truly," he said finally. "But I don't want our relationship to be based on money. I learned the hard way with gambling that money can change things." Oliver nodded, understanding. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply." "You're already helping," Daniel said, meeting his gaze. "We don't need your money, Oliver. Just having you here. Your time, your presence. That's worth more than anything money could buy." Oliver felt a lump rise in his throat. "Thank you, Daniel. That means more than you know." They sat quietly, the distant sound of Emma humming as she did her homework drifting through the air. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "You know, there is something you could help with if you're serious." "Anything," Oliver replied instantly. "Our neighborhood community center is struggling. They need volunteers, and maybe some donations, for their after-school programs. I thought maybe, with your contacts." Oliver's face lit up, feeling a surge of excitement. "I'd love to help. In fact, why don't we go together tomorrow to see exactly what they need?" Daniel nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "That sounds like a great idea." As Oliver prepared to leave that night, he felt a profound shift within himself. It wasn't just his relationship with Daniel and Emma that was changing. Something deep inside him was, too. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose beyond financial success. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised, hugging Emma and then Daniel. "We have a community center to help." As he drove back to his mansion, he realized he no longer saw it as his true home. His home was with his family, in that small house filled with love and laughter. And he was determined to be part of it, no matter what it took. What once felt lonely and empty now seemed full of promise and hope. Full of possibilities, Oliver smiled to himself, eager to see what tomorrow would bring. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if the sky itself was celebrating this fresh start. Oliver woke up early, more energized than he'd been in years, not for a business meeting or a deal, but for something that truly mattered. Today, he was heading to the community center with his brother. Arriving at Daniel's house just as he was sending Emma off to school, Oliver bent down as Emma ran to him, hugging his legs tightly before hopping on the school bus. "Good morning," Daniel greeted him, a cup of coffee in hand. "Ready to see the center?" "More than ready," Oliver replied, grinning. "I did some research last night. Seems like they've been struggling for years." Daniel sighed as they walked to Oliver's car. "Yeah, it's a shame. It used to be the heart of this neighborhood, but now they can barely keep the lights on." The community center, an old but character-filled building, stood in the heart of the neighborhood. Peeling paint and cracked windows hinted at years of neglect, but Oliver could see the potential beneath it all. They were greeted by Maria, the center's director, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, though her eyes looked weary. "Daniel, it's so good to see you," she said warmly before turning to Oliver with curiosity. "And who is this?" "Maria, this is my brother, Oliver," Daniel introduced. "He's interested in helping the center." Maria's face brightened. "Really? That's wonderful. God knows we need all the help we can get." As Maria gave them a tour, Oliver noted the extent of the center's needs. The roof leaked, the electrical system was outdated, and most of the equipment was either broken or worn out. "What programs do you currently offer?" he asked. Maria sighed. "We used to have art classes, after-school tutoring, even a book club for seniors. But with budget cuts, we can barely keep the after-school program running." Oliver nodded, his mind racing with ideas. What if we not only restored those programs but expanded them? We could add computer classes, maybe even a small community gym. Maria and Daniel exchanged glances, a mix of hope and skepticism on their faces. "That would be a dream," Maria said softly. "But how?" Oliver smiled confidently. "I know a few people who might be interested in supporting a community project like this, and I'm willing to make a substantial personal donation. But more than that, I'd like to help hands-on, organize things, recruit volunteers." Daniel looked at his brother, newfound respect evident in his eyes. "Count me in too. I can help with repairs, and I'm sure some folks around here would pitch in." Maria looked close to tears. I don't know what to say. This could change everything." "Then let's get started," Oliver said, extending his hand with a warm smile. In the days and weeks that followed, a whirlwind of activity filled the community center. Oliver tapped into his network to secure donations from local businesses, while Daniel organized volunteer teams from the neighborhood. To Oliver's surprise, he found that he enjoyed the manual labor, painting walls, fixing furniture, and working alongside the community. Each day brought fresh challenges and small victories, and the center began to transform. In the afternoons, after finishing up repairs, Oliver met with Maria and other volunteers to plan new programs. Maria and a dedicated team of volunteers brainstormed ways to implement new programs. Emma was a frequent visitor, brimming with excitement as she helped organize books in the new library or assisted younger children with their homework. Oliver watched with pride as his niece took on these small responsibilities, her enthusiasm infecting everyone around her. One Saturday, as Oliver and Daniel took a break from painting a classroom, Daniel turned to his brother with a thoughtful smile. "You know," he said, "I never thought I'd see you like this." "Like what?" Oliver asked, wiping a paint smudge from his cheek. "Happy," Daniel replied simply, "truly happy." Oliver paused, considering his brother's words. "You're right," he admitted. "I don't think I've felt this kind of happiness in years. This feels right." Daniel nodded, placing a hand on Oliver's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Oliver. You've changed so much." A lump formed in Oliver's throat, and he managed a soft smile. "Thanks, Daniel. I couldn't have done it without you and Emma. You've shown me what really matters." They shared a quiet moment, the sounds of laughter and teamwork filling the air around them. Finally, after months of hard work and dedication, the day of the community center's grand reopening arrived. Once a neglected building, it now gleamed with fresh paint and sparkling windows. Colorful banners announced the new programs, and an excited crowd gathered for the celebration. Oliver, Daniel, and Emma stood proudly alongside Maria, all sporting community center t-shirts. As Maria gave a heartfelt speech of gratitude, Oliver looked around, astonished by what they'd achieved together. Families mingled, seniors chatted animatedly, and children played with renewed energy. In each face, he saw a sense of hope and possibility that had been missing from the neighborhood. When it was his turn to speak, Oliver approached the microphone, humbled by the crowd's applause. "I'm not here as a benefactor or a savior," he began. "I'm here as part of this community. This center is a testament to what we can achieve when we work together and care for one another. It has taught me more than I could ever teach anyone, showing me that true wealth has nothing to do with what's in a bank account." He looked over at Daniel and Emma, who smiled back with pride. "My family brought me here, and you all have become my extended family. Thank you for letting me be a part of something so special." As the crowd erupted in applause, Oliver felt a joy like never before. He knew that this was just the start of a new chapter, one filled with purpose and love. In the months following the center's reopening, Oliver expanded his efforts, founding an organization that opened additional centers, implemented educational and job training programs, and worked tirelessly to uplift underserved communities. Daniel took on a leadership role as the foundation's operations director, where his experience and connection with the community were invaluable. Emma, inspired by her family's efforts, grew up with a heart full of compassion and a determination to help others. Emma, inspired by the impact her family had made on the community, decided to follow in her father's and uncle's footsteps. She pursued social work in college and, after graduating, joined the family foundation, bringing fresh ideas and enthusiasm to their mission. One day, while overseeing the construction of a new center in a neighborhood across town, Daniel turned to his brother, pride and amazement in his eyes. "You know," he said with a smile, "I never thought I'd say this, but I think you found your true calling." Oliver glanced over at the enthusiastic volunteers, a warm smile on his face. "A year ago, I wouldn't have believed it either. Life can really take some surprising turns." Speaking of surprises, Daniel added with a mischievous grin, "I've noticed you've been spending quite a bit of time with Maria." Oliver felt his cheeks warm as he laughed, caught off guard. It was true. Over the past months, his friendship with Maria, the center's director, had deepened. Their shared passion for community work and making a difference had brought them closer than he ever expected. "Well, we work together on a lot of projects," Oliver replied, trying to sound casual. Daniel chuckled, giving him a knowing look. "Come on, Oliver, there's more to it, isn't there?" Oliver let out a sigh, a shy smile spreading across his face. "Maybe there is. Maria's special. Her compassion, her strength, she inspires me every day." Daniel clapped a hand on his brother's shoulder. "I'm happy for you. You deserve this." As the sun set over the city, Oliver reflected on how drastically his life had transformed in such a short time. From a lonely, self-focused executive, he had become a man with purpose, surrounded by family, friends, and perhaps the beginnings of a new relationship. "You know," Oliver said to his brother, feeling a swell of gratitude, "I think I'm happier than I've been in a long time." The brothers shared a smile, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they were not only building community centers, but a legacy of hope and positive change that would impact countless lives. As they walked back home, Oliver felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known. His life, once defined by status and wealth, was now filled with purpose, love, and the satisfaction of making a real difference. Years passed, and the family's impact grew. It had been 2 decades since that fateful morning when a little girl's innocent question on the street changed the course of Oliver's life. Now, as he sat on the porch of his home, surrounded by family and friends, he marveled at the journey that had brought him to this moment. The world he had built wasn't made of money or titles. It was a world built on love, connection, and the legacy of kindness he had sown. And as he looked out at his family, he knew with certainty that he had found the true wealth he had been searching for all along. Now at 65, Oliver sat on the porch of his modest but cozy home in the very neighborhood where his journey had begun. Maria, his life partner of the past 2 decades, sat beside him, their fingers intertwined as they watched the sunset. Time had left its gentle marks on both of them, yet their eyes still sparkled with the same warmth and love that had brought them together all those years ago. "What are you thinking about, my love?" Maria asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. Oliver smiled, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Just how much everything has changed, and how lucky I am." Just then, the sound of children's laughter floated through the air. They looked toward the garden, where their 7-year-old granddaughter, Ella, was playing with a group of neighborhood kids. Ella was the daughter of Emma, who now ran the foundation that Oliver and Maria had established so many years ago. Emma had married Tommy, a teacher she'd met while working at one of the community centers, and together they were raising Ella with the same values of compassion and service that had shaped their own lives. Daniel, now a man with graying hair but the same warm smile, came out of the house carrying a tray of lemonade. "Kids," he called, smiling as they all ran over to grab a glass. Ella giggled, her cheeks flushed, and then she bounded over to the porch where Oliver sat. "Grandpa," she said, her big eyes full of curiosity, "can you tell me the story again? The one about how you met Aunt Emma?" Oliver chuckled, lifting her up and settling her on his lap. "But haven't you heard it 1,000 times?" "Yes, but I love it," she insisted. "Please, Grandpa." Oliver looked at Maria and Daniel, who both nodded with knowing smiles. And so he began to tell the story that had changed his life forever, the story of how a little girl had recognized him on the street and led him back to his family. As he spoke, Oliver marveled at how life had come full circle. Here he was, telling his granddaughter a story that began with another little girl her age, a girl who had unknowingly set him on a path of happiness and meaning. "And so, Ella," he concluded, "I learned that true wealth isn't in money or things, but in the people we love and the difference we can make in their lives." Ella hugged him tightly, her voice a happy whisper. "I love you, Grandpa. When I grow up, I want to be like you and Grandma Maria, helping people." Oliver's heart swelled with pride. "And you will, my little one. You have a big heart just like your mother." At that moment, Emma and Tommy arrived, greeting everyone with warm hugs. Emma, now a woman with the same bright smile she had as a child, sat beside her uncle. "Telling stories again, Uncle Oliver?" she asked with a playful grin. He laughed. "Your daughter is insatiable. Reminds me of someone I met years ago." Emma took her uncle's hand, her eyes full of gratitude. "I'll never stop thanking you, Uncle, for everything you've done for us, for this community." Oliver shook his head. "No, Emma, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You, your father, and everyone here. You showed me the way to a truly rich life." As the family gathered on the porch, sharing stories and laughter, Oliver felt a deep sense of peace. His life, once filled with empty successes, was now brimming with love, purpose, and connection. He looked out at his family, knowing that the legacy he had built was not one of wealth or titles, but of kindness and compassion that would continue to ripple out for generations. As the family gathered on the porch, chatting and laughing, sharing stories and memories, Oliver couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey his life had been. From a once lonely, self-centered man, he had become the patriarch of a loving family and a pillar in a thriving community. What had begun as a personal redemption project had grown into a network of community centers throughout the city, each changing lives in countless ways. Today, the foundation, now led by Emma with Tommy's help, continued to adapt to the evolving needs of the community. They had added financial education programs, mobile health clinics, and green energy initiatives, always finding new ways to empower and uplift people. Though officially retired, Daniel remained a constant presence at the centers, his wisdom and experience invaluable. Over the years, he and Oliver had forged an unbreakable bond, their brotherhood stronger than ever. And Maria, his steadfast partner, had been Oliver's rock every step of the way, her love a constant anchor in challenging times and a source of joy in every triumph. As the sunset cast golden and pink hues across the sky, Oliver looked around with a deep sense of peace and gratitude. The life that had once felt empty and purposeless was now brimming with love, meaning, and the profound satisfaction of knowing he had made a real difference in the world. "Are you okay, love?" Maria asked, noticing his distant, thoughtful look. Oliver smiled, his eyes shining with happy tears. "More than okay, my love. I'm at peace, complete." At that moment, as if the universe wanted to underline his words, a gentle breeze drifted through the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and the sound of children's laughter. Oliver closed his eyes, taking it all in, feeling the weight of his life's journey. He thought about the man he had been and the long, winding road he had traveled. He remembered that day on the street when little Emma's innocent question had set everything into motion. And now, looking at Lucas, her enthusiasm for helping others so like her mother's, he saw the legacy of love and service that would continue far beyond him. Oliver knew with absolute certainty that this was true wealth. It wasn't in the millions in his bank account, nor the titles he once pursued. Real wealth was here in this moment, in the love of his family, the gratitude of his community, and the fulfillment of a life well lived. Once a lonely millionaire, Oliver had found a treasure far more valuable than any material fortune. He had discovered the wealth of the soul, love, purpose, and the joy of giving. As night fell gently over the neighborhood, the family stayed together on the porch, sharing laughter, stories, and quiet moments. Oliver leaned back, his heart full, knowing that his journey had led him exactly where he was meant to be. Surrounded by stories, laughter, and the love of his family, Oliver felt the warmth of a life well lived and the enduring impact of his work. He knew in his heart that he had experienced true wealth. This was the close of his journey, yet also the start of something lasting. The love and compassion he and his family had shared would continue to grow, reaching others and shaping the world long after they were gone. And so, the tale of Oliver Bennell, the millionaire who found the true meaning of wealth, came to a close. Yet his legacy, the changes he embraced and the love he spread, would live on in the hearts of all whose lives he had touched. His journey would echo in each act of kindness, each life transformed, a lasting reminder of the richness that lies in love, purpose, and connection.